All right, so thank you all for coming to our ELNG Praxis Community of Practice today. This is a Valentia, is that correct, Milicia? My Spanish isn't very good.
Valiente.
Valiente,
Yes.
there you go, which means brave and building strength and authenticity. Sorry, been a long day. We first initially saw this workshop presented in Colorado. Was that correct, Milicia?
Yes, he was at Haku in Denver.
Right. And we thought it was very powerful and we wanted to bring it to you. So we're going to go ahead and get started here. But if you have any questions, go ahead and put your questions into the chat and Milicia and I will be watching that. And then as soon as Carol gets here, we'll get her on as well. You might need a piece of paper. You're also possibly going to need to go to some links and make a copy of a document, but we are very assured that you can do this. Otherwise, I will pop a PDF into the chat and you'll have that to work with as well. So it's all good. You can do this. It's nothing that's out of your grasp. We know this. So again, Carol's going to be here to be presenting, Alicia and myself. And we are also welcoming a friend and a colleague from Greenfield Community College. Linda, welcome. We have already begun, so if you want to turn your camera off and your microphone, we are recording this session. So what we're going to be doing is introducing to you this concept of authenticity and resilience. And we're going to have you be doing some reflective work that we'll walk you through. It's all very easy and there's no wrong answers to any of this. And then we're going to have you look at your own self and what you might be bringing into the classroom or the workshop. And some of you who are more practiced at these might have seen this type of a exercise at a previous workshop, or you might have done it in your own classroom, or possibly you joined us in January at our professional day when we did this live and in person, but you all got this. So the first thing that we're going to do is a privilege walk. And this really helps you to develop your awareness of yourself and helps you understand yourself in a way so that you can relate to others. We did a lot of implicit bias training during our equity leaders and guides work. So this is another way to do that. And it's really going to help you think about and build empathy and inclusivity, particularly for your students. But you can use this in any kind of a situation. So bear with us as we walk you through this. So everybody's going to start with a score of 0. We're going to walk you through some questions and there'll be yes and no questions. This is where I need you to just get a little scrap of some kind of paper that you can take some notes on, grab a pen or a pencil, or if you want to do it on your phone or a little post-it note or whatever, just grab that. Again, what we want you to do is you're going to be answering these 12 questions and we want you to be honest with yourself. And it's really important to kind of come up and add to the first answer that you receive when you're pondering this question. Milicia, would you have anything to add at this point?
No.
Okay. So has everybody's got a scrap of paper? Anybody got a question? It's not going to be as hard as it might seem. So remember, you're going to have a -1 or a +1. And Milicia, you might have to help me with the scores because -1 is a yes answer, +1 is a no answer. So the first thing, do you have difficulty finding hair products, makeup for your skin, complexion, or a hairstylist or barber in your current community? If you have a yes, it's a -1, a no is a +1. And we're going to just ponder these for a moment and then I'll move forward. We can always come back and double check all these. Yes is -1, no is +1. So did your parents have to work nights and or weekends to support your family? Number 3, can you easily see a doctor whenever you feel the need? Now we've switched the numbering. So yes is a +1, no is a -1. Number 4, were you the first person in your family to graduate from college? And yes is a -1, no is a +1. Five, do you own a car or lease a car or have access to a car? Number 6, have you ever been bullied for something that you cannot change? Welcome, Carol. We're working through the privilege walk, so just hang on while we finish up. Number 7, you sometimes, occasionally, or often feel that people interrupt your personal opinions as representation of your entire race. Interpret, sorry. You sometimes, occasionally, or often feel that people interpret your personal opinions as representation of your entire race. Have you ever been diagnosed with a visible or invisible disability? And remember, we're not sharing any of this information with anybody individually by question. We're just going to be thinking about our numbers at the end. And you do not even have to reveal your numbers to anyone else. So have you ever been diagnosed with a visible or invisible disability? Have there been times in your life when you or your family did not have money to buy food? Number 10, have you ever been hesitant to speak because you were afraid of being ridiculed for the way you speak? For example, you have an accent or a speech impediment. Number 11, if you walk into a business and ask to speak to the person in charge, you will usually speak with someone of your same race. Is that a yes or a no? And now the last question is, do you often worry about violence, drugs, or crime in your neighborhood? Oh, sorry, there's one more. Were there more than 50 books in your home when you were growing up? So now we want you to tally your score, and you don't have to share it with anybody, but tally your numbers. Does anyone want me to run through the questions again? You can unmic and ask if you do. It's not a problem. We've got plenty of time. Okay, so you've got your scores tallied. So we want you to think about what came up as you were answering these questions. And obviously, this is something you may or may not want to consider doing with your students or another group of colleagues that you might work with. But how would this activity feel different if your answers were not anonymous? So if the room could see or hear your privilege. I have seen this. The first time I saw this was on I think it was a YouTube, and everyone stood against one end of the room, and then they were asked the questions, and you walk forward or you step backwards, depending on the answers. And it was very visceral and kinetic of who had privilege in the room compared to who didn't. And that's kind of the bottom line here. So were there other factors influence your privilege that you had not thought of before walking through these questions? And then how might those same feelings affect your students when they're not in your classroom? So again, reflect back and think about this. And I'm going to invite Carol or Militia, if you want to add anything here.
Yes, thank you so much, Mary. So let's think about question number one. What thoughts and feelings came up for you as you answered these questions? You can add any comments to the chat if you feel comfortable.
Or you can unmic if you like. We're a small
You
group.
can also talk.
Mm-hmm.
I did the activity while you were doing it too, so all my score is here.
I got mine on my little post-it note.
Any volunteers? So I can tell you, in my case, I always have issues finding hair products for some reason, but I never thought about that until I did this activity. I thought it was just common for everybody, like you're looking for a specific product, hair product, or in my case, specific shampoo that agrees with your type of hair. So some of these questions, specifically that one, made me reflect on something that I thought it was common, like maybe it is not that common. So let's see, we have some comments here in the chat. I'm going to read them out loud. I think everybody can see them. I never thought about access to books at home being a privilege or how many I grew up around. I really took that for granted. That's wonderful. Thank you, Wyatt. Anybody else?
Renee, you had unmiked. Did you want to say something?
I think I never thought of myself as privileged or not privileged. I was just me. And then reading these questions, it made me feel, wow, I guess I'm more one way than the other. So it's more, I didn't realize until you have to actually answer these questions that if I considered myself privileged or not, or that I really wasn't. Just by answering these questions, you made you realize you're, I don't know, that I was different than I thought.
Carol? I cannot see anybody, so I apologize if I miss someone. Carol, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Also, when I was listening to the questions like Renee, I realized that a lot of these were made me feel that I wasn't privileged. But even though I knew that, but when you're an adult and you have come a long way, then you rethink of all these questions and you're like, whoa, like I've been through a lot, I've done a lot. Like the shampoo one, and like Melissa, like you mentioned, when I was little, I had mixed hair, which was like curly and straight, but I didn't know what to do with it. So I was between a regular shampoo VO5, I'm making myself, and getting a hair relaxer. And I didn't know what was what, and I didn't know what to do because there was nothing that looked like me when I was young to indicate what shampoo was for my hair type. So growing up, Like as far as books, that was a commodity. Like I remember my father giving me $5 I can go to the library because they had a romance novel special of
Oh,
50 cents, so it's like, yeah, we didn't have any of this stuff. So it made me realize, as far as reflecting, how far I've come, pretty much.
Anyone else before we move forward? Wyatt, go ahead.
Sorry, I hope I'm not taking up too much space. Because I
No.
already said something in the chat, but I think you know, especially living in this area in Western Mass, I hadn't thought about, wow, yeah, having a car here is an enormous privilege. When our students don't have access to when our students don't have a car, even if they have access to public transportation, it's it's very spotty at best. And this is just there's so many areas that are really disconnected around here. So it really encourages me, to be attentive to that students might be facing transportation issues or struggles with getting around. So I appreciated having a chance to reflect on what a privilege that really is.
Thank you. Let's think about number four. How might those same feelings affect students when they are in your classroom? And I'll tell you a personal story. This was, many of you may know, you may not know, but I graduated from STIC many years ago. I know Carol since back then. And then I transferred to UMass and I lost transportation. So at the time I was living in Springfield. And it was in the middle of the semester, so I couldn't just drop classes or anything.
mm.
So I just said to my mom, to my parents, I'm just gonna ride the bus. And they said, well, are you sure? And I said, yes, 4 buses to get to UMass from Springfield. Um, and in one of my classes, I remember it was statistics. I had missed 2 classes, pretty much like a week, because every time I would ride the bus, I mean, I would have to leave home around 6:30 and get there at 9:30. But class, because remember, it was after add and drop that I lost my transportation, started earlier than that. So anyway, I said to myself, I cannot miss class. So I came in the classroom like 10 minutes before the class ended. And the professor stopped the class. He was stopped the lecture, but he was lecturing on. And he said, did you just wake up? And the entire classroom started laughing.
Oh no.
And right. And I just like froze. So at the end of class, I went to him and I said, like, I'm so sorry, but I've been riding for buses and I just literally got here because I missed my Holyoke bus, which happens to pass by every hour. So if you miss it, you have to wait another hour. So just those are the things that sometimes as an assistant dean, sometimes I hear some of my faculty, not a lot of them. It's like, oh, students come here all the time. And my next question is, do you know why? Have you talked to your students? Right? What happened? Because we usually just assume is because they're not responsible or something happened. And sometimes there is more to it that we may not be aware of. So just to keep it in mind. Any other thoughts?
Yes, to piggyback off of that, I had a student in my class who came in the like first week of class and she was literally shaking and she was like 10 minutes late. And then she asked like at the end of class, could she talk to me? And I was like, of course. So we go out in the hallway and she says, I know I was late. I'm really sorry. I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but she had to catch a bus from the shelter that she was living in with her daughter to drop her daughter off at daycare, which you can't drop them off early, right? Then catch another bus downtown to catch a bus to campus.
Yeah.
And she goes, I took this class before and the teacher dropped me because I was late all the time. And she goes, I really need this class and I'm really sorry. And but if you don't want me, if it's not going to be okay with you, let me know now. And I was like, wow, first of all, somebody dropped you from a class for this? I am dumbfounded. And I was like, I don't care if you come the last 15 minutes or 10 minutes of class, because at least I can give you the notes and I can give you any announcements. And she changed the way that I do things. So before I would do my announcements at the beginning of class, take homework questions and move on. And I started writing all my important announcements on the sideboard so it wouldn't get erased. And I made sure that when she did come in, I could, make sure she could take a picture of my notes or whatever it was, and make sure that she had all the information she needed. So this woman's doing way more than I ever put effort into it, right? And I'm like, how can you get penalized for that? Like, that's amazing to me. And so it definitely, I don't make assumptions about why somebody's coming in my class late, nor would I ever shut and lock the door. I know a lot of faculty do that because I don't know what they're going with. I'm not living in a shelter with my baby and having to deal with all that stuff. So, and not that I was bad about it before, but it really made me super conscious of making sure if somebody comes in late, I don't do it to embarrass them, but I'm like, hi, how are you this morning? Or, just to let them know that it's fine and I'm addressing you and I'm not mad and I'm not going to ignore you. And you're a part of this class and I'm just really glad that you made it. Right. So I think that's really important when we're thinking about it. And I got a negative score, so I know that and I've done exercises like this before. I always get a negative score. So, I understand like what I've gone through in my own life and what I've had to deal with. And don't even start with the hair stuff because, black women and hair, it's a whole thing. So it's always been an issue in my life. But I think that humanizing your students and humanizing yourself makes all the difference in the world. Because I want my students to be like, oh my goodness, you're so nice, even though you make us work really hard. Like, that's what I want. That's what I want. You can complain and make you work hard, but I see you and I'm going to be working with you to make you
Yes. Yeah.
successful, right? So that's kind of my thoughts behind that.
Thank you so much, Vanessa. Anyone else? That was beautiful, by the way. No, so are we ready to go to the I am poem with
Yep. And I'm
Carol?
going to put into the chat,
Uh-huh.
there's a link that should get you to the copy of, it should be asking you to make a copy. So you click the blue button that says make a copy, and you should be able to open an editable copy of this, the I am poem.
It says request access.
Okay, hang on. We can pivot. I think. Hang on a second to make a copy. Let's try this.
If I may, if I can jump in, Mary.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to be more of the section where I'm going to be touching base on. And before I start with the activity and I say my piece, I just want to say that I actually try this with several of my students. And after I read my piece, I'll give you guys an example about what happened after my students did this activity. So maybe something that you might be able to use forward, possibly in your classrooms or in general. So whenever Mary's ready, and you go to the first slide, I'm going to go ahead and read the piece while she figures out the technology piece.
I put another link to the copy of a copy. So you need to make a copy of that. And
I
again,
got it now.
we'll get this on the our mothership of a website, so you'll have everything. And you can adjust these if you'd like for your own self or whatever. It's whatever you want to do. Yeah, I just want to be sure that everybody's got what they need before we get going here. So,
Okay.
so Carol, I'm going to hand it over to you.
All right. If you can go ahead to the next slide, I put my first person on there and this is the second person. So here, this is my I am poem. I'm going to read it so you guys have an idea of what's expected of you to do the I am poem activity. I think it is important that after I finish doing the poem, you go ahead and do your piece. And then while you're doing your piece, I'll give you the stories of what happened to the students when I had them do this activity. So here it is. I am charismatic and a positive thinker. I wonder how to evolve into higher frequency. I hear loud whispers that are all around. I see energies in all wonderful colors. I want to reach the level of connecting with my higher self. I am charismatic and a positive thinker. Oh, no. I pretend to astral travel through multiple dimensions while I am awake. I feel in sync with the universe as I speak to it. I touch the wind that is all around us and even when it's still. I worry that I may not reach my personal goal in this lifetime. I cry when I see that time is limited in this dimensional world. I am charismatic and a positive thinker. I understand that everything and everyone has a purpose. I say everything happens for a reason. I dream of being able to reach multiple dimensions at once. I try to connect with everyone and everything in this lifetime. I hope to awake when the world understands that we are all a collective of one, and I am a charismatic and positive thinker. So as you can see, this activity talks about what you think you are, and this could be anything you want. So for the next 10 minutes or so, go right ahead and start typing in the information you want to say, and then later on, you'll have an opportunity to share out the same way I did. I just want to say that when we did this activities in a conference in Haku last year, and the folks who actually wrote their piece and gave an example, they were amazing. They were very inspirational. They talked about their cultures, their backgrounds, and it really solidified who they are as a person. And it was very inspirational and even gave you goosebumps. So with that said, go right ahead and keep typing as I say what happened when I actually had a couple of my students do this. So as an academic counselor, I see a lot of students from age of 17. My oldest student is actually 71. And a lot of the times people come right from high school, getting to be retrained because they got laid off, or because they're tired of being a mom and they want to do something for themselves, or they want to get out of disability and actually become a productive person, et cetera, et cetera. And one of the questions that I ask a lot of my students is, in order for them to get proper guidance, is, do you know who you are? Do you know what it is that you want out of this experience, out of this college experience, or, what it is you want to move forward? And whenever I hear, no, I don't know what I want. I have no clue. Like no one has ever come and asked me that or talked to me. They just have this expectation. You go to school and you do this. There are some students that do know. They do know who they are and know where they want to go, and they're very determined. But for those students who have questions, I actually had them do this activity. There was 2 students that really stood out above the rest. One of them was in between majors, wasn't sure really what he wanted to do. And so then I read my poem. As you can see, it's on the slide, but I actually have it on paper. I read it in my office to them. And then I asked them, what do you think about that? What did that make you feel? And then they tell me, wow, you really know like who you are and where you want to go. And I said, okay, so now I'm going to give it to you. You're going to go ahead and do it on your own time. And then slide it under my door and let me know, afterwards what it is. Then I did that with another student. This was a female student, and she was in her early 30s. And again, she's just trying to figure out, because she was a mom for so long, and she was working on and off jobs. And when it came down to that, she stopped her life for others, she drew blanks. But I gave her the activity, she did it. And then when I had them both read it back to me, I asked them, I can't tell you what they wrote on there actually, but I can tell you how they felt. So the male student, who was a traditional student, said, oh my God, I've never thought about what I want and who I am. And I never had proper guidance. I don't have a father figure. I don't even have a mother figure. I only have a grandmother, maternal. And she wants me to become an adult. And this poem really made me realize that I have to start making choices that are going to lead me to where I want to be. So I can't be wishy-washy with my decisions. I have to make a decision about my life soon. And so then I worked on him for that. Then the early 30s student, when I had her do her poem and then reflected on it, she's like, she almost cried. Well, she did cry, but it was one of those that you just wipe off kind of tears. And she's like, I've never felt heard. And this poem made me realize that I can be heard. And she felt very motivated because she was feeling overwhelmed with being a mom, taking care of the household, going to school full time, and also trying to solve other people's problems. And she realized that this poem made her realize that she needs to set time for herself and focus on herself. And this was now her time. So, what the poem did for these students is make them realize where they're at in their life at the moment and what did they need to do to move on. What this poem did to me when I was reading it, it really, really made me realize how vast I think and how I encompass almost everyone that I meet and how I do relate to everyone. So it gives me the ability to expand on that. So it made me realize that I am very open-minded. I'm very warm-hearted. I'm super nice. And I am very universal thinker. But that was my experience and my experience with my students. Now I'm going to go ahead and find out. You should be done with it by now, hopefully. So any volunteers to go ahead and read your poem, go right ahead.
I just want to check, does anybody need more time, or did you have any questions with the poems and what you put in?
Any brave volunteers? Would love to hear it. Oh, come on, you can't be that shy. Well, let me ask this then. What did you all think? You could put in the chat or you can go ahead and ask right out. What did you think about my poem? What did that make you think about my other side of me? Go ahead.
Or about Carol's poem, or about doing the exercise yourself?
Yeah, Sandra, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, Carol, as you were speaking, I was thinking about, I mean, and I can't follow your poem, like, because it's so good. Like, I don't have anything I could add to that. That's like, because I'm like, no, I can't fill this out right now. So just for full disclaimer, but it does make me think when you were saying how you have this wide age range. We all have this is community college, right? 17 to 71, right? How is it that somebody, you meet and hasn't been to college before and has had these major life, like raising children, like the example of the mother raising children? How is it that that person doesn't know or hasn't been encouraged to know, right? And so then it makes me think about some of the barriers that perhaps people experience day to day, those systemic barriers that, you know, that they run into that almost like, I dare say, like prevents them from knowing, right? And then they meet you and you're like, the door is open. Come on in, and I just think that's really wonderful. And we're really lucky to have you at the gate, letting people in.
Thank you. But to answer that, the privilege walk, that those questions, a lot of the students that I do meet are not privileged. They have all these barriers. They have all these chaotic things that happen in their life. And sometimes the early choices that they made in life is because they weren't properly guided. And I understand that because I was there too. But the difference is I'm a little nerd. As you can see, I'm a universal thinker. So I've always been very forward with it. And I just very goal-oriented and very determined. And hopefully that rubs off on some of our students.
And I would just like to add, I'm looking at the list, and I believe many of you in the room, with the exception of maybe Carol and me, your faculty. And consider taking this back to your campus or to your departments or your program or just a colleague or friend and share with them. Because I think it's really important that no matter if you're faculty or a staff, that these tools that we're giving you have an important place in your workspace or just in your relationships, with your colleagues or your departments or your students or the students you work with in Carol's case.
Any other volunteers to go ahead? I am curious. I would like to hear something from somebody. Any other questions that you may have in regards to this activity? If you think you may use it, do you think is going to open up a line of communication? What are your thoughts as faculty? Where would you use this and how?
So, oh,
Yes, go ahead, Wyatt.
Thank you. Yeah, I really appreciate you sharing yours with us because I feel like it gave me such insight into kind of what matters to you and who you are, and it gives me a sense of like your kind of orientation toward the world and allows me to kind of see part of your humanity. And I feel like so much of especially at the beginning of class, I feel like so much of what we do is kind of can make students feel like they're just a number. Going through rosters and checking things off and making sure, it just sometimes can feel a little like almost mechanical. And I think I would have loved the opportunity to share something like this in one of my classes. I'm thinking I teach in a dual enrollment class at a local high school. And I think, oh man, I know those the students, it feels like they're just like bursting at the seams to express themselves. They really want to be understood and known, and that's what we all want, right? So I think that, and I love that this gives sort of a structure to sharing that so that you can make yourself, be vulnerable without having to make yourself be vulnerable. You're like inviting other people to be vulnerable. And even I know I'm not sharing my poem, but I really felt like it opened up the space for that to feel good because you shared yours first and very courageously. So I thought maybe I'll do one of these and share it with my students and then invite them to share that with me. So yeah, thank you for
Absolutely.
sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
all right, Carol, I'll I'll read mine. I
Yes,
know I wasn't going to. So I
come
actually
on.
wrote this during your workshop,
Okay.
the PD.
Mhm.
So I am fearfully and wonderfully made. I wonder how far I can go. I hear my ancestors cheering me on. I see the brightness of my future. I want to make a difference. I am fearfully and wonderfully made. I pretend that my experiences don't cut me. I feel scared and unworthy. I touch the hearts of all I can. I worry about not doing enough. I cry with all the hate in the world. I am fearfully and wonderfully made. I understand life isn't fair. I say keep on fighting to the end. I dream of unity and joy. I try to do my best and help others. I hope to make a real difference in the world. I am fearfully and wonderfully made.
Wow, that was great, Dr. Hill, Vanessa Hill. You know what? That makes you feel like now that you read yours, it made me understand you at a different level now. So it does open up the ability to connect with people because people get to understand you a little bit more. So thank you for that. Thank you. That was wonderful.
You're welcome. I had no intentions. If it wasn't for you, Carol.
You can do it. Anyone else? Renee?
Renee, you unmuted. Do you want to share?
Well, I didn't get through all of it. It was definitely time consuming.
Yeah.
But I thought that this would be a wonderful exercise for students that come in and already feel overwhelmed, and the way that what they're coming in with and their feelings that they can't do anything. And I just think this exercise itself is they can pick the words and thoughts and feelings. And then hopefully in the end that, you know what, they are someone special and they can do whatever they want to do. I just think it's definitely an encouraging exercise for individuals.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The only one last thing that I would suggest for anyone to do, I think it's important when you're getting to know your students. You're going to be with them either for 7 weeks or 16 weeks. And if you really want to connect with students, I think doing this at the beginning so you have an understanding and they have an understanding of you, then it'll humanize you. It'll make you another person instead of just feeling like another number or another faculty. Oh my God, another student, another excuse. Then you can actually see a little bit more of their side. And sometimes when you make students reflect of who they are, they will like to live up to this eventually. Because then what I would do later, like after when I work with students is usually, more than a semester. Usually we work with them for 4, 5, 6 semesters or sometimes even longer. Then I'd be curious to do it again before they graduate or before they leave me, just to see the growth. Because what I do is with my students, when they first come in, and then I have a student who's almost finishing and everything they did just panned out, and they're in awe of how much they grew within a year and a half. They came as a high school student and they're leaving as an adult. And for them, that is shocking. And this is another way to do another reflection and to also let them understand, like Mary went over the privilege walk, like when I was listening to all that I've been through in my life and where I am today, it's amazing. It's a wonderful journey that makes you connect with so many people, with so many backgrounds, so many cultures, and they get you. You get them, they get you, and maybe you'll have more productive and dedicated students. And that's just my little tip.
And you could also do this in small groups. You could, have your students do it in small groups and just share with each other, or take it home and bring it back, those kinds of things. So I'm going to put a link in the chat, which is a link to all of our resources. And I will double check that everything is functioning and working. Let me just double check here. I think we're getting toward the end of we did our share out and our questions. So I think we're pretty finished with all that. Are there any final questions of anything that we shared? I did want to add that we have another last Praxis Community of Practice on April 29th, which again is a Tuesday. I am open to any ideas. If you have ideas or you have colleagues or speakers that you might want to bring in. I want to thank Carol and Melisha for sharing your time and your energy with us, because we really did have a good time with this when we were in Denver. And I really strongly encourage you, take it back to your campuses and share out widely. That was the spirit that they brought it to us out in Denver at Haku. And I think that's a spirit you should take forward with your students. Even you could ask students to share with their friends. I think that could be interesting as well. You don't even have to know the outcomes of things. But if you want any other privilege walk questions, there are other resources, tons of things. If you Google it, it's a big range of questions. We tried to keep this to things that would be get the idea across, but wouldn't be embarrassing for folks. Because when we first did this, we did this in person. And again, if you do it in person and you have people physically stepping forward or not, we were trying to keep it anonymous. It does put on a different kind of flavor if you if things are showing and sharing pretty publicly. So I want to be careful of our time. It's about 10 minutes, but I know a couple of people have to peel off at 6 o'clock, and I'd like to thank you for taking time again and joining us. But any last thoughts, questions, ideas? If you think of something, email me for April 29th. And that goes for all of you. If you know some friends, bring them along. Linda, we're talking to you, GCC. If you can bring some folks along, they're more than welcome. And then also remember, as I was doing this and we were talking, that page that I put the link in, scroll down it. It's a very long page and it's got a lot of resources in it. We talked about humanizing with Michelle Pansky-Brock. We talked about relationship building and with Peter. And, there's a lot of good resources on that page that you can use with any age group of students or colleagues that you have. So last thoughts or questions to share, anyone?
I just want to say thank you for everyone being here and listening to us. Again, we're all here for the same purpose, is to be able to connect with our students and give them the experience that they all deserve, whichever that may be. And the whole point is STCC, I was also an alum, as Militia was too. I had great experiences. I had great faculty, and that's why I'm here. So hopefully we can pass it forward and continue having this community become even larger and making sure our students get what they deserve. It's a quality education with quality folks like all of you.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you all. We'll see you on the 29th, if not sooner. And send your ideas. Love to hear from you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank
Anybody's
you.
on spring break, please enjoy your
Thank
spring
you.
break.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.